Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Byron Lambert, and today's a big day on the podcast because version 1.0 of the epic, the magical, the mystical, the mythical RosterWatch cheat sheet for PPR leagues is live on the site and being tested as we speak. It's early this year, but fuck it. We've wanted to get it out and get it up. People were already interested in seeing how our redraft thoughts were shaping up. And so the PPR cheat sheet is now up and being tested. We have version 1.0. Byron, I'm excited about it. How the hell are you doing?
Doing great, man. One of my favorite times of year. I love running mocks. I've been running mocks for what, 10, 15 years now, man?
Longer than that, I think, man. Definitely. Yeah. Probably. I think I've been running mock drafts a little bit longer than that, but certainly not using these various simulators and pulling from all these different sources and things like that we have nowadays. But yeah, man, the couple of these mocks that I've done so far using the cheat sheet have turned out really awesome. But I guess for the format of the show today, Byron got V1.0 in his hands last night. Got online, started running some mock drafts, and he's just going to kind of go over with me as the architect of the PPR cheat, some of his thoughts, some of the, I don't know, just, do you want to explain sort of what you're going to talk to me about here, Byron? You probably have a better grip on it than I do.
I was thinking about that, but you just explained it perfectly. There's not much I could say. I mean, basically, I've run my first few mocks using version 1.0 of the Ultimate Draft cheat sheet, the PPR version of the Ultimate Draft cheat sheet available to our pro subscribers at RosterWatch. And I came away with a whole bunch of observations. And look, we've been doing this for a long time. So I know that at this juncture in the calendar in the year that ADPs, they vary wildly. And they're going to tighten and change drastically from here on out. A lot of the arbitrage that can be had at this point will disappear come later in the season. And then the sheet was a living, breathing document that'll just ebb and flow and always create value based on what the market's doing. Like Alex says, it's leverage. It's like magic. It's just, it's very natural the way it works. It's just leverage against ADP, and it's almost inherent to the sheet. It's truly indestructible. So I keep that in mind when I run these early mocks, that a lot of this is going to change.
As people wise up, and it's
right. Exactly. And
you get more good opinions you get more good opinions out there into the space, and people start listening to the other highly respected analysts that we like to, associate with and talk to. Our boy James Kinney here in the YouTube chat saying magic and mysticism is on the agenda. It certainly is today. The magical mystery on the agenda as we unveil our initial thoughts about the skeleton of V1.0. And Byron brought up some really good points there that, this thing changes. It changes so much throughout the course of the summer and throughout the course of the off season. But some of the players that we're able to get right now, there's a bunch of interesting players that I probably continue to keep following to me. I'll be interested to hear what Byron thinks. It looks like we have a keeper PPR question. Do you want us to answer this before we get into it? Sure. Might as well. Daniel Schaffer is asking PPR question. So keep Saquon for his first round. Do you know where you're picking yet in this draft? Will be my question, Daniel. If you could answer quickly in chat, that'll help with the answer we'll have. But so Saquon in the first, Tyreek in the third, Derrick Henry in the fourth, Courtland Sutton in the 12th, or DJ Chark in the last round. So I guess round 16.
That's an easy one, right?
What do you say? I don't know if I think it's as easy as you do. Is it Derrick Henry in the fourth round?
I mean, that's a slam dunk in my opinion.
Yep. I think that if he was picking like 12 or something, I could entertain the idea of Saquon Barkley, and then get Saquon Barkley right. So he's saying it's randomized. He's not going to know until right before the draft. So yeah, what if he got picked 12? Would you maybe think about Saquon?
Yeah, I certainly would think it would be down to those two players.
So if you get pick 11 or 12, you can think about Saquon if you really love him. But I think that Derrick Henry, and in that scenario, that would mean Derrick Henry would be your 4.01. which makes that, so clearly if you have a pick at the beginning of the first round, you're not going to want to take Saquon because that's about his current value, and you're getting even extra value there on Derrick Henry because it'll be the end of the fourth whenever you make that pick.
And he may have to decide before that randomized draft order is revealed. So you got to figure that he's probably got somewhere between a 18 and 50% chance of landing a late enough pick in round one that you would really begin to strongly.
I just stick with Derrick Henry. I stick with Derrick Henry. I think it's the best. I think it's the best play.
So the other thing that sticks out, Alex, before I dive into these observations is, I keep in mind that when designing the cheat sheet, a lot of the slotting, a lot of the architecture has to do with ADP. ADP forces your hand on some of these decisions. So, I'm not going to excoriate you or nitpick too much here, but let's just dive right in. My observations from the first few mock drafts that I've run using version 1.0 of the Epic PPR Ultimate Draft Cheat Sheet at RosterWatch.com. So overall impressions, Alex, love the players I got. Love that the sheet is still forcing me to wait on quarterback. My team has ended up running back heavy, but that was mostly because the mid-round value on wide receiver absolutely stinks at this point on the calendar based on current ADPs. I think ultimately for the foreseeable futures until ADPs tighten back up, probably going to have to move all running backs, James Conner and below, down a hair, while not moving all the wide receivers up necessarily, because that's kind of a main vein that runs through.
It doesn't stop.
The center of the sheet.
Yeah.
So what that will force is us to strategically move up some very targeted and specific wide receivers for the foreseeable futures until ADPs readjust, which ultimately they will. I wouldn't mind maybe a little bit better crack at some of the tier 2 quarterbacks in my mocks, and also would not hate at least a little tiny bit of exposure to Patrick Mahomes, given the running back depth that is available to us, quality running back depth that's available to us in the middle rounds of these mocks versus ADP currently, Alex.
Well, let me just address your initial philosophical thoughts because these are the same thoughts that I've been having. And to be completely honest, when we talk about that tier, the James Conner and down, James Conner needs to come down from where he is because I'm getting James Conner in a ton of these simulations. He's a guy who, I didn't know if you got him in any of your mocks. Did you get a bunch of James Conner? It feels like I'm getting a lot of him.
Yeah, I saw a high frequency of James Conner.
Yeah, but the reason why is you can get him in the 5th round. Starts to feel kind of interesting. But a lot of James Conner, a good bit of Cam Akers. So it feels like, maybe that range right there, they can come down. But man, it's just if you look at these guys' ADPs and best ball. And if you were to set the sheet up just by ADP alone, which we know you can't do with the cheat sheet, one, because it robs it of its magical mystery. That isn't what it is. This sheet is leverage against ADP. But the other reason is we have roster construction to take into account now. We want these teams to be balanced. We want to have a good stable of running backs, a good stable of wide receivers. We want to hopefully wait and get a good quarterback. We want to, if we take a tight end at any high point in the draft, we want to be able to take that tight end at extreme value and have other value tight ends, lined out on the sheets where you're sort of forced into taking them a little bit later in the draft, but definitely pointed in the way to the guys that we think could break out, right? This is also goes into the architecture of the sheet. As I was addressing the first part of that, as far as making sure that the rosters were balanced correctly, right? Just for the course of basically 14 rounds in what most people draft before they draft kicker and defense, right? In 12-team leagues, I had to move all the running backs down precipitously from what they had been before on the previous best ball cheat sheet. But I do understand the need to maybe get this tier of James Conner, David Johnson, and Cam Akers too. I'm getting a lot of Cam Akers. That feels good. It feels good to get a lot of Cam Akers in round 7, I think, right? But it's just whenever you begin to move them down, it's like, golly, I mean, do we really, like, if you had a choice between guys like James Conner and, Stefon Diggs or something like that, aren't you still taking James Conner? No?
It depends. Not necessarily, and it just depends on the construction of my roster at the top. And since you're kind of taking a deep dive down this avenue, Alex, I mean, I might as well go ahead and get to it in this same range of running backs. I was seeing quite a bit of exposure to Marlon Mack, Damian Williams, and even Darius Geis, as well as Raheem Mostert, and Tevin Coleman. So it struck me that from Connor all the way down to those guys, there's some look in a vacuum. I like those players better than almost all the wide receivers that are available. It's the way these things go, right? So. I wondered are we a little too high on Marlon Mack, or are we a little too high on Damian
I don't want to be I don't want to be high on either of these assholes. I fucking hate them both. Just let me see. Marlon Mack we have is we running back 30. A middling running back 3. I think Marlon Mack's probably a middling running back 3 in PPR. You don't think so? Do you think he's completely evaporated by? Let me know what you think. Is he completely evaporated by Jonathan Taylor?
It doesn't look like the market currently thinks so. And so by having him at that slot, it's just resulting in a lot of exposure for us.
I mean, okay. So Marlon Mack,
from what I've seen.
So and you've been getting Damian Williams?
A lot of Damian Williams.
Have you been using any of the Yahoo? We pulling in any of the Yahoo ADP stuff?
No, I just did versus the experts rankings and
deep ECR, Fantasy Pros, and everything that pulls in.
Yep.
I think if you add in the Yahoo PPR ADP, I don't think you would be getting much Damian Williams. I'm not getting Damian Williams in any simulations that I've run, but I'll certainly keep an eye out for that.
Look at where he's at on the sheet.
Yeah, running back 32.
Do you like him with those guys? I mean, I guess that's the right group, I suppose.
But I mean, this tier right here. I mean, we can talk about this tier all day. DeAndre Swift, Marlon Mack, David Montgomery, Damian Williams, Darius Geis, Kerryon Johnson, Kareem Hunt. Personally, I like Kareem Hunt best out of that whole goddamn tier. I think, right? Maybe Darius Geis.
I like filling up on those guys later if maybe I've gone wide receiver earlier, but the problem is there's so many questions about wide receiver earlier. There's just so much incentive to kind of, you keep, the running backs, there's so much tilt towards the running backs, for this first half of the draft. It makes it a difficult situation. The value's not there, but it begins to force your hand in order to balance your roster. I think what it potentially means too is that you've just got to fill up on wide receiver late. If you're going to exercise this strategy, it's fine. There's a ton of good running backs you'd love to have on your roster, and some of them are going to be pop, and some of them are going to be astronomical trade value throughout the season. So from that perspective, I like it. I just think the other answer here then might be forcing to fill up on wide receiver, in those late middle rounds as a way to kind of fortify what's going on there. And then I saw a decent amount of Darius Geis too, Alex, and I'm not against that. I think it's an interesting pick. That's a guy that generally we would have been pretty bullish about heading into this season. I think the Antonio Gibson thing is maybe taking a little bit of sheen off here. But in terms of kind of like middle round running backs, that's the group that I was seeing a high frequency on.
Were you getting him at all before the late 7? Darius Geis isn't priced in to go into the late the 7th, 8th turn.
I mean, I was filling. Yeah, it's not bad value. I'm just saying I was filling up on running backs all the way from like mid rounds to like late mid rounds. That's just what was becoming available to me. All players I like at value. It's not any nitpick there. It's just terms in kind of construction, what that was leaving me with. And, it is a lot of questionable guys you're drafting there. Maybe we really hone in on a couple of them. we'll see. That's just going to be sense. It's going to be it's always going to be a work in progress. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So let me kind of rewind here a little bit, Alex, towards the top of the sheet. I do see a little bit of value at the top of the sheet because Saquon Barkley is going to be my number one player this year. It looks like you're going to be able to get him at number 2, maybe number 3 this season.
That's an interesting thing to say. Just can you talk about that? Why you're going to have Saquon over McCaffrey?
Well, I'm not living in the past. I'm looking ahead. So if you're trying to run it back with McCaffrey, maybe it'll work. But I'm trying to predict the future, not run back the past. And so, it's pretty much a 2-horse race, right? So I feel like Saquon is in a good spot for a bounce back year after the injury hindered him, and rookie quarterback play. I think Daniel Jones is going to be good this year. Jason Garrett is a coach who has adopted the Michael Jordan rule for Zeke Elliott. So we'll see what kind of influence he has there. And I see the Giants as a team with, an offensive line that's also still improving. So year 2, Daniel Jones, a bounce back Saquon Barkley. And I just Barkley's not a guy who gets game scripted out either. So if the Giants are in a bind, real
difference makers recently on the offensive line. It makes sense.
And I'm not sure they even have. Obviously, McCaffrey doesn't have any backups that you really sweat either. But
and the division too. The division is the division too. We haven't made our strength of schedule tool yet. That'll be fun to do whenever we start getting that ready. But I'll bet you he has an easier strength of schedule just because that Christian McCaffrey's gonna have to go play the Tampa Bay run defense twice. That was the only thing that thwarted him last season. Remember? His worst game of the year versus Tampa Bay, and if I remember correctly, he had another really bad output game from everything except for the touchdowns that really saved his bacon in the other Tampa Bay game. So I think one of those games was actually in London. But regardless, I think that kind of makes sense about Barkley. For me, it's just Dance with Who Brung You and CMC is just he was on a different level last year. It's been a change of coaching staff, a change of quarterback.
There are concerns that Rule's not going to run the wheels off with McCaffrey like Rivera did. Now they haven't done a lot to.
What's funny, man? Because it's fucked up. Because you see smart coach we think smart coaches like Sean McVay. You pay Todd Gurley all this goddamn money, and then you don't use him. It's like you go out and buy your new sports car. You know how this is, Byron. You like to hear him growl. You like to hear him purr, man. But you kind of like to keep that kitty in the garage a little bit too.
You really do. You want to. You're almost remorseful when you use it, but then
right.
It's begging for you to smash when you get in it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Okay. I think we are beginning to see the early indications of a slide with Miles Sanders due to the incoming Carlos Hyde news this last day or two.
Shouldn't we have expected something like this? We've said it from the beginning,
Probably so.
Right.
There weren't that many desirable options left on the market, but Hyde is the guy that's the big bullet you're really nervous about if you're a Miles Sanders guy right now. That would really muddle things. So I think we're seeing the early beginnings of a.
Do you think Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be ahead of Miles Sanders on the sheet, given the Carlos Hyde stuff?
Not yet.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine.
But they may be converging.
Their ADPs are going to converge, and the only reason I have Miles Sanders ahead of him right now is because the ADPs are seven slots off. If they converge and they get down to like 3 or 4, I'm going to flip those 2 players.
I love where Cooper Kupp is on the sheet, but I do think Tyler Lockett needs to be moved up at least a few spots, maybe several spots.
Okay, well, let's talk about it because basically I get Deebo Samuel in every draft, and I'm not sure how much I like that. I talked to Trashman about this. Trashman had him as one of his number 1 players to fade next year. Do you agree with that? And do you not? Every time I do one of these simulations, I feel really happy about getting Deebo Samuel as my wide receiver 2. It feels like we're getting him a lot. We're getting a lot of DJ Chark in that spot too if he's available. Do you like I mean, do you like Tyler Lockett better than Deebo Samuel and DJ Chark? Do you like him better than Devontae Parker?
Probably so. Probably better than all three of those guys. Now, I don't see Deebo as a player to fade. I just would see him more as a wide receiver 3. To your point, I did notice we're getting quite a bit of exposure to Deebo Samuel. So I'm not necessarily only talking about moving Tyler Lockett up at Deebo's expense, but Lockett definitely has some upward mobility on the sheet.
All right, so I'm not gonna get him ahead of Devontae Parker just yet, but I'll get him ahead of DJ Chark. And while I'm at it, you talked about Mahomes a little bit earlier. I'll get Mahomes up to where, I mean, if you're looking to where you're having to choose like Courtland Sutton or something like that, I would feel sicker picking Patrick Mahomes in that spot, wouldn't you?
And that dovetails perfectly into my next observation, which is, as much as I love him, I think we're a little bit high on Courtland Sutton, Alex, and at the same time, we're a little bit low on DK Metcalf. Metcalf has to come up.
Okay. So you want to move up both the Seattle wide receivers?
Yep.
Those
are the guys, man. Those are the guys. There's plenty to go around. Their mid-round values are both very good. They might not deliver every single week, but those guys are going to have some big weeks.
Let me just look and see. So let me just look and see. So I believe I had. All right. So if Courtland Sutton is too high, we're going to have to decide then who we want to target here through this range of these types of players, Byron. Because if we're moving this James Conner tier down, and you guys go to RosterWatch.com, you can download the sheet and you can look at what we're saying here as you can maybe more easily visualize what we're talking about. But I feel like even if you're not a pro member at RosterWatch, you don't have this sheet, or maybe if you're just driving, I'm trying to give you a little visual representation here. The sheet's a visual tool that helps you navigate ADPs and helps you to always take the best value, right? And so sometimes little tiers and groups have to slide, and you want to take the player who's highest up on the sheet, right? And that's how all this manipulation works on our side. If you're saying that the James Conner area needs to come down, right? Inevitably, that means you want to target wide receivers here through this tier, starting at about Adam Thielen and Courtland Sutton, where we currently have them, right? So we're talking guys like Keenan Allen, Devontae Parker, Tyler Lockett, DJ Chark, Deebo Samuel, Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, maybe ending with Stefon Diggs, T.Y. Hilton, and Terry McLaurin. Who within that group of wide receivers gets you super excited in your little robot pants?
Well, the guys that need to go up, the guys that I see value on, the wide receivers I would pursue at this juncture of the draft, like I said, would be both Seattle wide receivers. I'd give Robert Woods a bump. I would certainly give Terry McLaurin a bump. And I understand the reservations about Stefon Diggs, but I believe he would deserve a bump as well.
Stefon Diggs right now, I have priced in as a pick 50, around pick 50, either pick between, you can choose between him and pick 55 and pick 56, which would make him, pick 60, get you through the fifth round. We're talking about pick 5.07, 5.06, or 5.07. You like Stefon Diggs there more than guys like, you like him more than Calvin Ridley and Deebo Samuel?
I like Stefon Diggs more than Calvin Ridley.
I'm not sure I do. Calvin Ridley was a sneaky winner. It was a sort of a sneaky winner of the.
Ridley's my guy, man. You know how much I loved Ridley last year, and I think it is a big winner. I mean, you're right. He's a sneaky. I like Ridley a lot. It worried me a little bit at the combine that Dimitrov.
I've quit listening to what the hell that guy's. The only thing I listen to him about is what product he uses to style his hair.
Well, what I'm saying is, I like all those guys. I think you're going to be forced to look at all those wide receivers over all those running backs because you're going to end up taking running backs early.
You're gonna
that's
have
a whole
to.
it's a whole interesting crop. I mean, I like Diggs, I like Metcalf, I like Ridley, I like Woods, I like Lockett.
So basically,
I
what
like
it is,
McLaurin.
and what they are right now is there've been a couple of there's been preferential treatment and leverage versus ADP that has occurred with DJ Chark, as is right now, with DJ Chark, with Deebo Samuel, with Calvin Ridley, to some degree with Terry McLaurin that's been upward, right? There's been downward pressure asserted by me, the architect of this sheet, on Stefon Diggs, on maybe to some degree on Robert Woods, which maybe that's dumb for some reason.
That's a bad move.
I'm a lot higher on Cooper Kupp.
Just like the Seattle guys, we want to crack it. We want a chance to have a little bit of value on both those Rams.
All right, I think he's going to end up getting us a lot. Okay. If Robert Woods comes up, Cooper Kupp necessarily needs to come down because we're going to end up with a lot. We're going to end. Okay, we're going to end up with a whole lot of it. Let's see. Sapper Stud saying Diggs is going to out target all those wide receivers except for Terry McLaurin. I don't know, Sapper Stud. I wonder if that'll continue to be a low volume attack there in Buffalo. I know he is the presumptive number one option there. So,
Alex, I thought Thielen was a sneaky guy at the top of the tier, so I don't hate that you threw him in that group. I'd be curious, did you put any downward pressure on Keenan Allen? Because as much of a golden son as he is, I'm not sure I can get behind Keenan Allen too much.
No, neither can I. But the ADPs, man, like, let me just see if I can pull up. So the last time I pulled ADPs was right before I put this thing out, and it was the ADPs on the consensus ADPs, right? So across what's available right now, there's like Yahoo, there's Best Ball 10s, there's the what's it called? I can't even think of the other mock draft site. I can't even think of the name. There's the Fantasy Pros ECRs, the Fantasy Pros Mock Draft Simulator. So with Keenan Allen, he has an ADP right now around number 49. Which is kind of at the end of that tier. I mean, he could stand to come down. I mean, to be honest, you know what probably needs to happen here, now that I'm thinking about it? Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods, and Tyler Lockett should probably be, if not right next to Keenan Allen, possibly a little, maybe even above Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I'm really not interested in any Chargers receiver. Maybe you could make the argument with a guy like Tyrod. I like Mike Williams, a little bit of less of a precision target, just a high value target guy. But I can't get bullish really on any of those Chargers.
Well, it isn't bullish on Keenan Allen. I don't think to have him just basically where his current ADP is, which is middle fourth round. But I don't want him.
So it's like dead money. Like if you know, like there's a hand, like when you've got pod odds, but you know it's dead money, you still shouldn't play, right? And that's not the exact situation with Keenan Allen, but I think that's the strategy we might have to adopt, at least given current ADPs, in order to have more exposure to those other wide receivers that we want.
All right. So let me ask you this. So Adam Thielen goes off the board, right? Because I don't consider Adam Thielen and Allen Robinson in the same tier as some of these mid-round guys that you're talking about. Basically, this corridor of wide receivers that it's looking like in the rounds 4 and 5 that we're going to be pushing people, at least with the structure of the sheet right now, to be getting them, because it's unlikely that you're going to be getting, using the sheet right now, Michael Thomas. Maybe you get Devontae Adams. Maybe there's a chance you get Tyreek Hill. I doubt anybody's going to get DeAndre Hopkins. I'm getting very little Julio Jones, Chris Godwin. Sometimes I'm getting some Mike Evans. Right, but very running back heavy at the very top. So if that's the case, the way we build the sheet, it's the sheet's guaranteed, and it's magic for a reason. It's because we sit here and we fucking think about these things, right? Like we do this shit for 4 months before anybody's ever thinking about their redraft leagues. And if we're identifying this sort of tier here, I don't consider Allen Robinson in that tier. especially with what's basically guaranteed to be improved quarterback play this year. If Mitchell Trubisky doesn't improve, he's going to be out of a job, and Nick Foles is in there, and Ryan Pace should be out of a job, but that's a whole other conversation. Adam Thielen, no Stefon Diggs. I know Justin Jefferson's coming in, but talk about a guy that should be set up for just the most targets, at least starting out the season, the most projected targets basically to this point in his career, just because of how many targets have been vacated. Juju, I don't consider him in that tier either. I consider him a little bit above. Those are all guys that I'll be considering at the same time. I'm considering taking a pretty valuable running back like a Chris Carson or a Le'Veon Bell, right? Now, once we get down below that sort of mini tier of running back, you're saying move down the James Connors, the David Johnsons, the Cam Akers, the Raheem Mosterts, etc., and leave this a wide open runway of these wide receivers that we're going to be choosing between. And I like that. I do like that. But whenever we do, we need to I guess we need to figure out what the bottom is, right? And whenever you talk about moving down the James Connors of the world, do you also consider moving down the Jonathan Taylors and the Devin Singletaries? Or do you consider that to be a sub-tier?
I chose James Conner purposefully just because that's where my exposure was coming in the mock drafts. I get that they're on the same tier relatively in the sheet, but that seemed to be kind of the breaking point in my mock drafts. So I'm not really worried about touching those other guys from what I've seen.
Okay, so whenever you, we're getting a ton of Keyshawn Vaughn and J.K. Dobbins too. So I need to make a note there. We'll get those guys down. But the other guy we need to get down, and that's Keyshawn Vaughn, J.K. Dobbins' room, is also C.D. Lamb, because I'm getting too much of him. So as we talk this over, James Conner, where does, if we're taking that James Conner tier under Singletary, how far down the running back list does he go to start testing? Because clearly we're not going to know until we test. But where would you put him just to try it? Like James Conner or Terry McLaurin? Because McLaurin's going to move up.
I had a note here that I thought we were about at least one round high on, or approximately one round high on Raheem Mostert. So where was he relative to
Conner?
Right below. So I mean, I think you're approximately around. I think we're approximately around high on those guys. Half a round, maybe more.
There's no way I can move down a round.
Three quarters of a round.
Okay. What are some other general overall thoughts? I think I have enough structural issues to last me a goddamn day. By the time people are hearing this, they might already have version 1.1 up on the site. But
Alex,
other broad thoughts.
I love the point you made that we don't want to do any of this at the expense of Chris Carson or Le'Veon Bell. That's an important note. Those are two guys we need to be really interested in. I like them both for different reasons, especially Carson out of the gate. You can make the argument for both. So I really like that you've got that in mind when you're designing the sheet here. Okay, next. This is a small nitpick because they're basically back to back on the sheet, and this will probably be a little bit of a controversial take. But personally, I'm probably taking David Montgomery over DeAndre Swift. We already talked about getting.
That's fine. Marlon Mack needs to come down a little bit. I don't want too much David Montgomery, but I also don't want to. I mean, I don't want to be completely blanked on the guy. Having priced in right now at pick 76. So we're talking at the end of round 6 is pick 70.
We didn't get the lock on 300 touches that I was demanding from Nagy at the NFL Combine, but I like what they've done with the offensive line. You like the idea of Nick Foles maybe getting in there. The other running backs suck on the roster. The Bears faithful think that Tariq Cohen is a terrible offensive player. So, look, this is what they drafted him for. I'm not going to get over my skis on it, but I also saw that there's some opportunity to get Kerryon Johnson in these mocks a little bit later too. So maybe that's a good way to if you can get carry on later, if you want some exposure to that Lions backfield, it's a nitpick. It's a nitpick. That was my personal observation. I'd probably go David Montgomery over DeAndre Swift. Already mentioned Terry McLaurin. The other guy a little bit below him that needs to go up, may need to go way up, Alex, is Hollywood Marquise Brown.
Oh, dude, you're right. Yeah. Why? You tell me why. Because he was somebody who I wanted to make a note to get up a little bit because I wasn't getting any of him. And I didn't have a note in here, so I'm glad you brought him up. But tell me why you love Hollywood.
I mean, he was far less than full speed in his rookie season, and we just get further development of him and the chemistry with Lamar Jackson and this offense. Lamar Jackson still is a somewhat burgeoning passer, and it's just he's got nuclear upside. I mean, I want Marquise Hollywood Brown as a nuclear wide receiver 3 option in my lineups.
Whenever they drafted Marquise Brown, they asked Lamar Jackson, who do you want? We're going to give you whoever you want. Lamar Jackson said, either give me Marquise Brown this year or give me Jerry Jeudy next year. And they said, you know what? We're going to give you Marquise Brown. We're going to give him to you right now. If Lamar Jackson wants Hollywood Brown on his team, one of the sicker prospects and faster prospects, a guy who was hurt all last year, a guy who was a rookie in his second year, we want everything tied to the Lamar Jackson offense, don't we? We want it all. Why are we not talking about his hand-picked weapon of choice and a nuclear weapon on that in Hollywood Marquise Brown? That could be the end of the pod right there. You want to just end it like that? It's a good ending. I know you probably have a bunch of shit.
I think it's great. I mean, you asked me. I mean, why does Hollywood need to go up? It's because he has elite mega upside. He's a mega upside player. That's what you want out of those guys there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll definitely get him up. So, all right, to everybody watching here on YouTube, man, if you guys are still watching, thank you. If you could do us a big favor, if you could give us a thumbs up in YouTube, also give us a comment underneath there. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe over there. It really helps. But the comments on these videos are awesome, and they help a ton. And we would just really appreciate it. It helps people find our content. It helps us. If you're not a pro member at RosterWatch.com, you can go get a pro membership right now. Sign up. It's quick and easy. You can have the cheat sheet in your hands to run your own mocks, to do your own analysis, tweet us about various mistakes or shit, some player I left off or something like that. It's the first version of it, and we're working through the kinks, and that's what this podcast was about. So it's all you guys. Thank you so much. Thumbs up, comments, subscribe. We love you guys, man. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace.